Okay, so thanks for joining us. So the decision-making optimizer. So I was really thinking about how can I share some of the tools around how to make decisions to get trust and buy-in faster. Of course, I've been, a facilitator with Synergy for a long time, and teaching particular the Zenity decision-making processes. So this webinar is not a sales call, but it's a start of a conversation, right? The start of a conversation around how to make decisions better. And at the end, I will share my calendar link if you do want to have more of a conversation around some of the problems that are going on for you and or in your organization, and we can have a bit more with more of a chat. And actually, I can put the calendar in now into the chat, so you can have it already. So for the expected outcomes, we're looking at building, if it's done really well, decision making. I have experienced that, you build over time a genuine trust and buy-in across diverse stakeholder groups, right? You empower your teams to contribute their best thinking, accelerate your project timelines, and you reduce, of course, staff turnover and create an environment where people can thrive and feel included. So I copied some of your challenges in here, Nadine, which I found really typical, to what actually happens to people, that, you are a collaborative leader and you want to do it collaboratively. And then when you get really opposing, options and decisions, you often feel in that sort of bit of a, between a rock and a hard place of, do I push through and make the decision because I'm the leader, or am I go with other people? So it's like that, when do I back myself up and when do I not? And then, of course, it's sort of typical for our time, we have to make decisions often really, really fast, and then that they're not necessarily the good decisions. And then, we're doing it in a moment, and then afterwards we're regretting it. So how can we create a bit of spaciousness around decision making and making decisions smarter? And the beautiful thing of facilitation, really good facilitation, is to access the collective intelligence in the group and make a much more intelligent decision. I mean, that's the ideal. So this is just a summary of problems without skillful decision making. It's a bit like at the tip of the iceberg, right? You kind of, on the top, all you see is the projects are failing, or, teams are not performing. But what's underneath is often low engagement, low alignment, low team performance, and, some objections from the people you work with. And that can end up in, burnout, maybe even quiet quitting. People just stop being really fully engaged. You feel really burdened with responsibility as a leader. You think you have to do it all yourself. You might losing talent, and you might, ultimately it's going to affect the bottom line, right? How you perform. Where the opportunities of the really good decision makings are really high performing teams and projects, high alignment, high trust, and high buy-in. You can really leverage your team, and so you don't have to do it all yourself. And projects are on time, and you actually come to collectively informed, intelligent decision making. Does that make sense so far? Can you give me a thumbs up if that's good? Yeah, yeah. Okay, cool, awesome. All right. So I want to share a couple of models with you. I don't know actually if you have done any Zenergy work or not, but this is you have. Okay. So just as a reminder, that's the co-oppository that is the foundations of Dale's work. And just to remind ourselves, because I think this is a big aha moment just in our recent training recently, aha moment, how we are making decisions in collaboration. So just to sort of remind ourselves the different types of decision making, we have had like a long period of autocracy, only decision making where one person decides for others, right? We're all very, very good at that. And then we're moving into democracy, which is where we are living, luckily, which is majority decides on behalf of others. So we made some progress, there is some movement. And then, of course, the ideal is the cooperacy, which is the term Dale has termed and written about in her book, Cooperacy at Work, where decisions are made by those that are affected. And the community and the people are actually committed to reach agreement. What it doesn't say, and that's I think is often misunderstood, is that it has to be a decision made by consensus. It doesn't say that. What it does say, and you see that on the model, as long as you stand in the values, which I will go through in a minute in detail, you go up the trunk, you have actually a whole range of decision-making models. So it's about deciding what's the right decision-making model in the right time. And I often say to leaders, just because you want to be collaborative, don't give your power away. And many times you need to be holding the power of the decision because you have the domain of responsibility as a leader, right? You see a much, much bigger picture than what the people involved see. So being very clear up front, I will make this decision. However, I love to involve you and get your perspectives to make an intelligent decision and representative decision. But right from the start, I will be the one who makes the decision. And then you don't have to be ashamed, and then you don't have to be frightened by opposing opinions, because you're really clear. I will consult you all and I hear you all, but I will make the decision. And then when you come back to the values that you can stand in, which is really important, as decisions are made by those affected, whilst they are affected by it, they might be informed, they might be consulted about the decision, they might be collaborated with, but it's depending on how the decision is made. So I just have this great example, like, for example, let's say your significant other you live with, or someone in your family who you're really close to, decides to quit their job. And they don't tell you at all about it because they think it's their decision to make. And they do it quietly. And then they tell you at the end, hey, I quit my job and I'm finishing tomorrow. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, well, it still impacts on me too, doesn't it? So yes, I would feel very unhappy if they didn't discuss it with me first. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. So this is all what it is. It's the courtesy of involvement.
Yes,
And
yes,
we often, if you put yourself into their shoes, you might be, oh, I don't want to share and I don't want to consult because I want to have the decisions. It's a hard decision and I want to make it. I don't want to give away my power. So
yeah,
that's that fear of losing decision-making power. That's why we don't share. And I
yes,
think in the bigger scale, that's the same situation, right? We don't share as often because we're feeling like we're losing our power. So, but it's the way how we're sharing it and how strong we're standing in the power of the decision making. So, if your spouse would say, "Hey, I'm considering to quit my job. I know it will affect you, and I love to talk to you about it, but I like to make a decision at the end." I gotta tell you that, but I just give you the heads up. You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
you would feel like, "Okay, I'm considered." Right? I'm
that's right.
considered, my perspectives are considered, and I just feel so much more connected and much more human, right? And that's all what this is about. And so
Absolutely.
that's what this value is. Decisions are made by those affected. They are involved in the process on some level.
Yes, yes, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
And so you're working together as peers cooperatively as well. So whilst you are maybe not equal as peers in terms of roles and responsibilities, when it comes to certain decision-making processes, you can still work as peers collaboratively,
Yeah.
right? It's it's just a different flavor. It's like, okay, we are in this together. We are
Yes,
as a team aligned around the purpose and some values. So we're working in this as peers. We're sitting in the same boat, so to speak, on the same bus, and we're in this together. And we're deciding how we're making a decision. And as it is in our structure, I will make the decision, or in some situations, you might be able to say, okay, actually, this decision I can give to you guys. You can make this
mm,
decision.
mm,
So you can
mm.
you can see what decision works for what. And then the key thing is valuing difference, and that comes down to when you get opposing, opinions, which can be really frightening. We're very conflict averse, right? This is just normal. We are wanting to be
Yes,
accepted by our community. We want to be harmonious. We don't want to have disagreement. But no disagreement does not help with collaboration. Collaboration only thrives when you have different opinions. And so if you stand in valuing differences and really welcoming disagreements, and I love the disagreement, I really hear you, and I will take this in consideration. You know, it's like people just want to be heard, that it's okay that they have a
agree.
perspective.
Yeah,
And you can just see like we all looking through a certain window, right? We have like a window of perspective. That's all we see when we come to a decision making or at any situation. And if nothing else, when you hear other opinions, your view widens, you know, and
mm,
often the opinions that trigger us the most are maybe the ones we could consider the most,
that's
you know,
right.
because we haven't actually looked at that because it's not a comfort zone for us.
That's right.
And that's where our like we're becoming more than our parts, right? We are when we're starting to really consider all of the opinions, we really become more than the parts in the group, right? So that's that attitude of not being afraid of it, being afraid of disagreeing, welcoming it in, because a high performing team needs to go through conflict and chaos. This is a normal stage. And if you do that skillfully, that you build trust, you will be buy-in, and you will feel create some confidence as a team to work with different opinions. And that's the sort of forming stage, you know, after the storming, and then you get really into performing. And then the last value is equal worth. So again, whilst you're not maybe equal worth in your decision-making power, you're equal worth as human beings, right? And we're all bringing sort of richness of perspective and a richness of knowledge. So, you know, we can treat each other as equal worth. So I hope that that helps. So like looking at into the like what is a collaborative decision making cycle in this model, be really clear at the beginning, determine your decision method. Like, you know, establish how you will decide. And you maybe decide that or you decide that with your group, depending on the situation. Then inform the affected parties and then communicate the roles and processes to stakeholders. Then ensure transparency. Make sure that everyone has shared information. We're gonna have questions at the end, Nadine. So I just muted you just to keep the recording, and then we have a chat at the end. So transparency and being congruent with that transparency, right? That's really really important. Solicit considerations. You know, like I said, you want to be considered when your partner or spouse quits their job. You know, that's all what it is to be considered. I know it will affect you. Consider what you get, and then obviously report back what the final decision is so people stay in the loop. Um, the whole person model, that's just a reminder on when we are connecting, not just to connect as heads on sticks. And that's often what's happening in the corporate world, you know, in the world. Like we are not just transactional, you know. So also for you to consult my heart and my belly, we actually have brains in all of those parts of our bodies. There are brain cells that give us information, and we're not using it enough. So that comes down to reading the room, to be fully present with the room, and really sensing what might be that needs to be said here to bring this group forward, and being really grounded and connected, um, doing that presence in you and that accessing of all parts of you will really help with facilitating any decision making process. And you can see on the left side of the slide, you know, like it's not just about intellectual intelligence. It's also about emotional intelligence that you can access, right? And eventually you get into CQ, which is collective intelligence, and connect as whole beings. And I think this is where the, you know, the when opinions come in, you know, our opinions are all in our head. We are all really, as human beings, the same and want the same. As how we go about it is different, right? Because we have different experiences, different knowledge, different beliefs. But those things can be shared and changed, you know, to see other perspectives.